meeting of the Portland City Council. Would you please call the roll?
Fritz.
Here.
Fish. Saltzman.
Here.
Novick.
Here.
Hales.
Here. Good morning and welcome, everyone. I think Commissioner Fish is here as well. We have some folks signed up for public communications. We'll take those first and then some time certain items after that, followed by our regular council calendar. If you're here to speak on a council item, please let our clerk know and she will make sure you get called. We typically allow 3 minutes for public testimony on council decisions, and it doesn't look like we're going to have any trouble sticking to that standard today. If you're here and want to speak, you just need to give us your name. No need for an address or any other information, just your name. And we always maintain the rules of decorum in this chamber, so if you agree with someone and want to show your support, give them a thumbs up or a wave of the hand, and if you disagree, a polite hand gesture to the negative is okay, but we ask that we not make applause or demonstrations in favor or against our fellow citizens' points of view in this room so everyone can be heard. We make exceptions for visiting dignitaries and school children, and if you're one of those, you'll probably get a round of applause. So welcome, everyone, and let's proceed, please. Before we do, let's take a quick look at the consent calendar and see if there are any items to be removed. There are only 2 on the consent agenda. Nothing to be removed? Okay. Let's take item 143, please.
Request of Ann McLaughlin to address council regarding National Court Reporter and Captioning Week.
Good morning.
Mayor Hales and Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Ann McLaughlin, and I'm a Portland native and resident. I'm here today in recognition of National Court Reporting and Captioning Week. I'm also a person with hearing loss and an active member of the local chapter of the Hearing Loss Association of America, which is a self-help support and advocacy group. I'm very aware of the importance of captioning as an accommodation that helps us participate more fully in our communities. Having captions displayed, as you do here every week, is an excellent practice that I hope will soon become commonplace. I'm thankful that captioning is provided on nearly all television programs and many movies, and that more movie theaters are offering their patrons ways to watch movies with captions. Thank you all for your unanimous approval of the ordinance requiring captioning on televisions in public places in Portland always be turned on, and that became effective 2 months ago. I particularly want to recognize Commissioner Fritz for her efforts in introducing the ordinance, working with the community and with the other members of the council to ensure its passage. I encourage everyone to visit the website Captions On Now to learn about that new ordinance and to help encourage local establishments to comply with the ordinance and turn on the captions. We appreciate all the local captioners for providing this great service to our community, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you. Thanks for your advocacy.
Yeah, well, I'll just mention that at one of my favorite family dinner places, the captions were not on, and it was a sporting event, and I was not able to follow it without ignoring my companions. So I asked for them to be turned on, and I experienced what people with hearing difficulties must experience because they couldn't find the remote, they couldn't figure out how to do it, and they said they would do it, and but that was one of the reasons that we just said turn the captions on,
Yeah.
leave them on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're
All
welcome.
right, thanks very much. Okay, item 144.
Request of Terry Munt to address council regarding National Court Reporter and Captioning Week.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mayor Hales and Commissioners. My name is Terry Munt, and I have been a court reporter since 1975. Excuse me. And I am here to celebrate National Court Reporting and Captioning Week. And I do want to thank you for being a leader in having your meetings captioned, as you can see right up here, and encouraging the other cities in Oregon to do the same. We really appreciate that. Also, the court reporters in the courts, as you probably know, we don't have reporters in our state courts anymore, but we are encouraging attorneys who have important cases, especially aggravated murder cases, to hire, they do hire reporters to go in and report those cases. So that's an issue that's important to us. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Good morning.
Hey, Mayor Hales and Council. My name is Tevin Green. I'm finishing my last couple months at Sumner College for court reporting. And I just wanted to say a little bit about my path and the excitement to go on. Within the next 5 years, we're expected to lose nearly 5,000 court reporters. I mean, in terms of losing, retire.
Retiring.
Make that clear.
Losing.
Not
the
losing.
authority.
Just retiring a little bit. I'm really excited to start my own career in it and really see all the options I have. It's been really cool because I enjoyed high school, it was fun, but I didn't really have any plans to go outwards and really see anything and really do my 4-year thing. It wasn't really my vibe, so I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And court reporting has provided a really cool way for me to use my hands and really find a new craft. And I'm really crafty. I like working with my hands, and it's a good way to make a good amount of money and also be a part of something bigger than myself and find a way to work with other people, but not necessarily be a lawyer, be an attorney, or be a judge. I mean, I love all the legal world, but wasn't really trying to be an attorney necessarily. So court reporting has given me the chance to be close to it, but not too close in a way that I can still enjoy it and get to know a lot of people and make a living for myself at the same time. And it's really exciting to see the growth of it because it's becoming more and more modern. A lot of my friends seem to think that it's a chisel and a stone and it's just really archaic, and it's like, no, it's very modern now. We're inventing new ways to do it, and it's progressing well, and I'm taking it upon myself to kind of help push it as well because it's something that I can see myself doing, and I would love to further it to the best of my ability because I am really enjoying it. Thank you for your time.
No, it's great to hear from you. It's great to hear this advocacy for and people refreshing the idea of making the public process, whether it's the judicial process or the legislative process, accessible for everybody. So thank you.
It's an exciting career. So if you know someone looking for a career change, encourage them to look into court reporting and captioning
And
because
what
there
kind
are
of-
jobs.
What
Pardon?
kind of pay scale does it offer?
It's really hard to say. Captioners are paid by the hour and by the jobs, the shows that they caption. Court reporters out in the field doing depositions are paid by the hour and then paid by their transcripts. It's pretty much, as hard as you want to work, that's how much money you can make. But the work is out there.
And what kind of education do you need in order to get it? What qualifications? High school diploma and how long?
High school diploma, and then in Oregon, we have one school, Sumner College, which is where Tevin attends, and I'm actually teaching there, teaching court reporting now. And it takes at least 2 years. It's an intensive course. A lot of it is computers because it is all computerized now. So you're learning to write to 225 words a minute.
Wow.
Plus computers, some legal terminology, medical terminology, all the things that might come up, increasing your vocabulary.
It's great. Oh, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Ray, I just wanted to say that as a former trial lawyer who is, of course, heavily dependent on the talent and dedication of court reporters, I appreciate your service, and Ms. Mudd, and I appreciate your willingness to enter this field, Mr. Green. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thanks. All right, item 145, please. Oh,
That
we
was
had
Mr.
Tevin.
Green.
Sorry, he came up. 146.
Request of Lightning Watchdog PDX to address council regarding proposed City of Portland purchase Wapato.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Lightning. I represent Lightning Watchdog PDX. As you know, Multnomah County hasn't been able to do anything with the Wapato property for the last 10 years. They've allowed it to sit empty. They've come up with various ideas. They've failed on every idea. I'm asking you, Mayor Hales, to look at purchasing Wapato. You've proven that you know how to open up shelters. You've proven that you know how to provide transportation to get them to and from various locations. You brought in very good management, TPI, to manage these facilities. You have the ability to create a surplus budget. Make an offer on Wapato to purchase Wapato for the largest shelter, transitional shelter, in the history of Portland, Multnomah County. Take it under your control in the city of Portland, do an IGA also with Multnomah County and Metro, and begin to operate this. Bring in Portland Business Alliance, neighborhood associations, various other people to figure out how to get this open and to begin running this on a pilot project to see how we can go. Again, Multnomah County has failed for the last 10 years. They have very big projects out there, the new Multnomah County Courthouse. They have to bring all the bridges up to seismic standards. They also need to build the new Multnomah County Health Department. They have too much on the plate, purchase the property, and have a sustainable, permanent shelter facility, Wapato. Make an offer, it's up for sale, and transfer it to the city of Portland. Thank you. Now, pertaining to the legacy project, Centennial Mills and the United States Post Office project, I understand you're trying to come up with $88 million to purchase the post office project. I understand that Centennial Mills has been put on the shelf. In my opinion, the reason why it's been put on the shelf is because you are looking at, not necessarily you personally, to purchase the post office project. My recommendation to you is this. We have a great developer that tried to step up on Centennial Mills. We have had speakers in here stating that it would be interesting to have a single developer step in on this project up front. In my opinion, Jordan Snitzer is the developer to come in at 50% on the U.S. Post Office, $44 million to bring to the table. That will still allow additional money to be focused at Centennial Mills of $38 million on public subsidies. Allow him the chance to step in also and take a control position alongside the city, which I think he's earned that right, and allow him to choose certain lots near PNCA if he wants to develop those out in the future to expand that whole campus there. And I think he's the perfect developer to bring in and at least have the discussion with him. Let him say yes or no. Can you come to the table with $44 million and work alongside the city to do both legacy projects? Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Okay, item 147.
Request of Trina Sutton to address council regarding sweeps and cleanups.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mayor. She said, my name is Trina Sutton. I'm not here to talk about my backyard today. I am here to talk about on behalf of a group of homeless campers that are camped along the Spring Water Trail over in southeast Portland. I'm having a bit of trouble. I just had a tooth pulled and it's swollen pretty bad. I'm having trouble talking, so please forgive me. But we have an issue behind Cartlandia. I've been able to move most of the people to another area that's been quasi-sanctioned by the city during this state of emergency. They have requested that the city be very active in removing the people that are causing the trouble, the ones that are making the garbage. They're also the ones making the trouble. That's kind of surprising coming from me, but my folks do not like them any more than anybody else does. We would not object at all to having them removed if they can't clean up and behave themselves. We would very much like to ask for a dumpster and at least a couple porta potties right there along so they can live like human beings for even temporary site. This has been requested by police and by other people that know that these folks really do need a little bit of help. Those who do not comply and clean up their mess, they need to go. We don't want them there. I would really appreciate if the council and you, Mr. Mayor, would address this and help me and others help the people that really do need the help and that really want to go into a better life. I appreciate it very much, your time. Thank you.
Thanks for being here this morning. If you haven't already done so, if you're here in the building, could you stop upstairs and talk to Bob Kita in my office?
I can do that, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you all very much. We'll move on to consent calendar. Unless there's anything to be removed, we'll take a roll call vote on the consent calendar as printed.
Fritz.
Aye.
Fish. Aye. Saltzman.
Aye.
Novick.
Aye.
Hales.
Aye. Okay, Okay, item 148. That's, you just have to read it because it's being rescheduled.
Amend intergovernmental agreement with Metro for development of a preferred alternative package, locally preferred alternative, and draft environmental impact statement for the Southwest Corridor Plan.
And if there's no objection, I'll reschedule that to March 2nd as requested, Commissioner, is that right?
Thank you.
Okay. And 149. No, we can't do it yet. We'll go to regular calendar. Item 153.
153, authorize a competitive solicitation for the provision of treatment readiness services, transitional housing, and follow-up retention support services to chemically dependent homeless adult chronic arrestees.
Thank you very much. Come on up, Commander and Emily. And this is a good news story about stretching dollars a little farther to get
Right.
more good results. So we appreciate that. Hope that the stretching doesn't cause the injury, but welcome.
That's a better story than what I had.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having us here. The Portland Police Bureau is proud of our service coordination team and all that it has accomplished since the program began in 2006. The mission of the service coordination team is to focus on people living on the street whose behavior is primarily driven by alcohol and/or drug addiction, and are persistently the cause of police calls for service. Currently, PPB contracts with Central City Concern to provide housing and access to mental health and addictions treatment. Just in 2015, we had 204 individuals come through our program. And since its inception, we have successfully graduated over 130 people. In 2014, Portland State University conducted a capstone study, and they found that our cost benefit is for every dollar we spend, we're saving $10. And they also found that there's a 91% recidivism reduction amongst program graduates, and they follow them up to a year after they graduate from the program. As you know, our annual cost is $1.7 million, and this year our current contract expires at the end of the fiscal year, and it's time again to ask for your approval to continue the good work of the service coordination team.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
Anything you want to add this morning, Emily?
I'm just open to any questions that you guys might have.
Tell us your name and what you do.
Oh, Emily Rochon, Rochon. I'm the Service Coordination Team Program Manager.
So the basic situation here is that we're going out for competitive solicitation, but we also have this good news about taking some unused startup funds in the program and using it to add 8 more beds in the system. And wanted to make sure the council understood how that was accomplished, because that's particularly good news.
Thank you, I've misunderstood that. Yes, how much money was that?
100,000.
That was unused, that because we transferred over to Central City, the whole program going to Central City Concern, it took a few months for them to get the program up and running. And so instead of not using that money, they've come to us and asked if we could authorize $100,000 to help upgrade the area in which the service coordination team houses people and gives excuse me, the services. Part of that floor was being used for office space and some other things, and they're going to turn it into the whole floor where it's able to give service, which will increase our capacity by
At least 8 beds. So,
8 beds.
What does that mean for the ongoing contract, and does that presuppose that it's going to stay with Central City Concern?
Well, either way, they would want to continue giving that service to someone. I mean, as we know, beds are at a premium in our county in order to house people and to give services. So, of course, they will be moving forward and with their proposal when it comes time, but it's not presupposing. It's just part of their overall upgrade of their ability to serve the community.
Yeah, it's still going to be a competitive solicitation, even
Right.
though we just awarded less than a year ago, this contract to Central City Concern, and they're performing well, which is why we're able to deliver more beds for the same dollars. So Just
Well-
wanted to make sure people knew about that.
And what kind of outreach has been done to the previous provider to help them be competitive in the new solicitation?
We have not contacted anybody about the solicitation until we get approval from you all.
I would hope that there would be truly an open solicitation and encouraging lots of different providers to see how much value that they can give to us and to the program, because obviously I'm a big supporter of it.
Absolutely.
I agree,
We think that's
Commissioner.
important as well.
We want an open and fair and transparent process.
So one of the concerns that I have, and thank you, Commissioner Fritz, for raising that, is that the way you've structured this solicitation, the applicant must be able to offer all the services that you're seeking, and that actually limits the number of people who could compete. Why have you chosen that path versus breaking up the various components and giving people whose expertise and skills are in either service delivery, housing, or some other part a chance to compete on their home field?
Right, great question. What we have discovered is that any barrier, any extra challenge that is put in front of someone who's already struggling with their addictions and mental health can create an impediment and have them no longer participate. The easier we can make it for folks to be in the same building, get up from where they're living, get services in that same area without having to take a bus ride back and forth, the more likely they are to stay in the program, and it keeps our recidivism rates at a better.
Well, that presupposes, Commander, that a provider wouldn't be willing to co-locate. See, I think the problem is that I see in this solicitation is it is structured so there's really only one party that's going to compete for it. And that technically complies with our public contracting laws, but it doesn't give us the ability to measure their performance and their proposal against other options. And whether we choose to require co-location or not, for example, in the Housing Bureau, we have all kinds of different providers that provide services to homeless people throughout a continuum. We don't have one provider that manages shelters, does transitional housing, does other things. What we do is we coordinate it. And so it sounds to me like you've made an initial judgment that this has to be coordinated by one entity under one roof. But the net effect of that is I don't think you're going to have a competitive solicitation because you've essentially cleared the field. And anyone looking at this is going to say that the incumbent that is providing all these services has the inside track anyway. So why would some other entity compete for this?
I actually, in the initial request for proposal, we were kind of looking at that, and we were actually asking that question as well. And you can build into the request for proposal either, at least having housing in one location, that is part of it. Right now we have low barrier housing in one location, the alcohol and drug-free housing all in one location. Instead of being spread out, that's the transitional housing piece. We see that model is very, very important because it's really about their next door neighbor. It's, not just the services they're getting provided, but it's going along the path with the same folks throughout the process. So that location piece we think is really important. But we can build into the request for proposal the part where you can highlight that if you can't provide the access to treatment services, at least highlight that you have a history and a relationship with another entity that you can kind of collaborate with in the request for proposal.
Well, I'm a little mystified by these questions. Maybe I misunderstand the situation, but it's normal for-profit entities when responding to a public solicitation to form teams in order to propose, right? Having worked in that world for 10 years and been on all kinds of different constellations of engineering and planning firms that teamed up to respond to a public solicitation. I don't believe that there's anything in this solicitation that would prevent a group of nonprofits from forming a team and proposing, right? It doesn't have to be a single entity that responds. It could be nonprofit A with nonprofit B and C as subcontractors, right?
Correct.
So I think there are lots of ways people could slice and dice the package of services that we're asking for proposals for.
So I think that's
I
a fair,
think.
that's a fair point, Mayor. So let me tell you the two questions I'm going to ask when you come back with a contract. First question I'm going to ask is, how many proposals did you get in response to this? That will help us understand whether the community of people bidding on this felt that this was structured in a way that invited them to put together those teams. And the second thing is, this is a related question, have you done a formal assessment and performance review of Central City Concern under the existing contract?
Oh, I mean, with quarterly reports and it's written into the current grant, the exact performance measures, outcomes, and they report on a quarterly basis.
So have you done a performance evaluation? Have you evaluated, I'm a huge fan of Central City Concern, but
Absolutely.
do we have an evaluation of their performance?
Yes. On a quarterly basis, we do that. They've been meeting the requirements that
Would you
is
like-
outlined in the.
Would you like for Emily to share that with council? Hey, Faye, please,
Please,
folks.
please.
Let's.
There has been in the past, as you know, a question about what are the goalposts and what are our expectations?
Yeah.
So I'm heartened to hear that there are clear expectations,
Absolutely.
quarterly reports, and monitoring of that, because that's been an issue, as you know, in the past. Now, my only concern here is we're saying a competitive solicitation, and our job is, we're referees. We're not here to advocate for any particular outcome. If what you're saying is this is structured so that anyone in the community could put together a team and they could propose even off-site services or on-site services, that would be responsive to the application. Then I think what we should wait to see is who responds. And if no one responds, we can at least then raise the question about whether the criteria we established was a barrier to people competing fairly for this contract.
Well, it sounds like from this discussion that members of the council want to make sure that we do a good job of outreach to potential proposers, whether as individual organizations or as teams. If I'm
Well, and
hearing-
there's
correctly.
Mayor, there's a history of this project that even predates you, so I'm especially sensitive in making sure that we treat everyone fairly and there's a level playing field.
Okay.
And
Hey, please, don't interrupt.
that taking nothing away from the deep respect I have for Central City Concern and the provision of services, but this is coming to us as a competitive solicitation. So I just want to make sure that this is designed to solicit the best ideas in the community, or whether what we've done is just, essentially, we're going to be rolling over the existing contract because they're the only ones that have the ability to respond to this.
I would like some additional
interrupt.
information about the $100,000. When the contract came to us to say that Central City's Concern was going to take over, there was a promise that all of the current clients were going to be taken care of and there would be a seamless transition. So I'm wondering where this $100,000 came from, and then concerned about putting it into a facility rather into the services. Yes, I understand that that will provide more beds, but the service coordination team works because of the providers and because of the relationship that they have. So if you could give me some, after we've sent this out for solicitation, I would like some more information about how did that transition go? Were people taken care of and had continuing care from providers? And, why do we have this $100,000 surplus? And I should question whether we should put that $100,000 into facilities or use it for other services, for
What's your response
Staff.
to that,
Would
please?
you like to respond now or later? Okay.
If you can now, that'd be great.
So when the new contract this fiscal year, there's actually a portion of the program that we went from 54 beds to actually 60 beds.
right, with the new beds, right?
With the new beds. And so the development and implementation of that program, because it was truly a kind of a whole separate program. So everything with the service coordination team, all the 54 beds, the kind of traditional service coordination team, everything was very similar. again, just the kind of the development of the new program, it just took a little bit longer. So with 24-hour staffing, making sure that there was rooms, we wanted to make sure that they were in the same location at the Golden West. So they had to do a lot of work to kind of get them open. So that's where that 100,000 came from. It was just that we thought, sorry, it's distracting.
Miss?
We should move to public
Would-
testimony.
Yeah, we'll take public testimony in a minute. If you have something to say about this, you'll be given a chance, but please don't interrupt who's up here speaking, and we'll make sure that you're not interrupted either. Thank you. Go ahead.
So again, the services, the services with the 54 beds, that was not interrupted. It was the money that was slotted for the 6 beds.
I'd like some more information on that, because it does seem a little bit like shuffling the money around when what we approved before was an expansion to provide services to those extra people. Thank
So
you.
what's the pleasure of the council? We'll take public testimony, but would you like to hold this over, or would you like to proceed with follow-up? I'm open to either scenario.
But I defer to my colleagues, we're authorizing a competitive solicitation. The question for me at this stage is, is this structured so that people can fairly compete for this contract? Commander Westbrook has said it does, and that people can respond to it either as a one-stop provider or as a consortium of services, and it's designed to be flexible, and will consider the most qualified, low-cost option. And Commissioner Fritz has asked that you do outreach to make sure that people know about it and have a chance to compete. At least at this point, that largely satisfies my concerns, although I guess I will just tell you, I'll be very disappointed if you come back and there's only one applicant, because that will be ultimately the test of whether this is a competitive solicitation in my mind.
I concur, Mayor. You've heard our concerns. There's nothing in the ordinance about the redirection of the $100,000, though, so I think that should be separate.
Yeah, that's not before us.
No, but it was authorized for a specific use. There's a question about whether it should be used for facilities rather than services.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
Kind of a comment and question, particularly for you, Commissioner Fish. We have learned, and certainly Emily, who's worked in the business for a number of years, that having things in one location does help increase the effectiveness of the treatment. And I'm absolutely for people putting together a product that says, we can subcontract here and here, and here's our goal. But our goal really is that we want to have a holistic approach to somebody where they don't have to get on a bus and go back and forth. So what we would be looking for, and we can make this clear when we're letting people know what we're looking for in the RFP, is to have that holistic. I mean, that would be, it doesn't have to be an absolute, if you can't do this, that you're out, but a preference. I'd like to have the preference be that the holistic approach, either through, you take care of making sure I'll get you there, not just put you on a bus and have it be up to you to get there, kind of thing.
Commander, I have great respect for you, and I hear what you're saying, and I don't disagree with the logic of what you're saying. I would simply point out that that's currently not the policy of the city's housing bureau. So we don't require that everything be under one roof, and in fact, we have different providers that have uniquely strong skill sets that are not necessarily. We have people that do great work on services. We have people who do great work on transitional housing placement. They're not necessarily the same entity. And if you're structuring this, that it actually explicitly says you get extra points if it's all one-stop shopping, I think you have to be clear to in your solicitation. Because you can't have that as a guiding value and then not be clear in your solicitation that that's a preference. Because then, as the mayor points out, if you're putting together a team, you know that there's a preference for having co-location of team. And that it seems to me is fair if you believe that's an important value.
And that was part of the question. I want to make sure that we're meeting your expectations too. But I just wanted to put it out there that that's our belief, is that the better service is offered when it's located. I understand with how the Housing Bureau has different contracts with different providers and they don't all have something under one roof. But it depends on what the service is
Right.
that they're providing and the intensity of the service. You know, what we're doing here is providing a service to some of the most difficult people to provide service to in the city traditionally, which is why it was, as you know, this program was under the Police Bureau because we couldn't get people to give services to this group of folks without us contracting specifically with them to make sure that they did, so that we could, because they're very hard to serve. So we're just trying to use our own experience here of knowing what works. But we also are committed to the transparency and being fair.
And I it's not my place to second guess your judgment about what's the best treatment, about what's the best way to configure the services.
Yeah.
But again, we're referees, so we just want to make sure that if we're doing a competitive solicitation and saying we're gonna solicit the best and
Okay.
most competitive ideas out there, that we're very clear about what we're looking for. And if someone, Mayor, we can't
Yeah,
compete.
come on.
One more time.
This is not okay. I've told you a couple of times that you cannot interrupt. If you interrupt again, I'm going to ask you to be excluded from the council chambers. You will be given an opportunity to speak, but please don't interrupt again. Do you understand? Thank you. I hope so.
So that's, I mean, yes, you can, through transparency and being clear, but if a consortium of our distinguished nonprofits want to come together and say that they can compete for this, I think they need to know that you want co-location of services, but you're not going to be taking points off if they don't provide all those services themselves directly.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, other questions for Commander or Ms. Rochon? Thank you both.
Thank you.
I'm going to make sure that, I guess I want to ask, we'll take public testimony, I want to ask that you follow up, and along with Deanna Weston Mitchell from my office, with council members to make sure that they are briefed on how you're proceeding, because obviously there's strong interest here.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, take testimony, please.
The three people who
No,
signed up.
folks, we're not going to take interruptions here, but we will take testimony. We're going to call on you or anyone else that signed up to speak. Folks, we're not going to do this. We're not going to have heckling and people talking through other people. So if you want to speak, let our clerk know, and you'll get a chance to come up and speak.
The three who signed up are David Keefe Davis, Charles Johnson, and Malcolm Chaddock.
Okay,
Come on up.
please. Good morning.
Morning. Thanks.
Before we begin, Mr. Davis, you've been warned. You do not get to interrupt other speakers, whether they're the folks that you're sitting with here, whether they're city staff, or whether they're members of the city council. If you interrupt these proceedings, you will be asked to leave, and if you don't leave, you will be removed from the council chambers. You get to speak, and everyone else does too, but you don't get to take over. That's the deal. Sir, go ahead, please. Whoever'd like to start.
Yeah, sorry, a little distracted at the moment.
It is distracting, sorry.
Yes, my name is Malcolm Chaddock, and I am appearing for myself, no other organization. I appreciate the efforts that the city is making to attempt to expand facilities for people who are in need. I came in this morning to try and learn on a very steep curve because this was the first I'd heard about it. One of the things that I've heard this morning that really raised my eyebrow, though, was the thing that the Commissioner Fritz was asking about with the $100,000 extra dollars that appeared. It implies to me that whatever process you engage in may require some kind of closer monitoring, because the sudden appearance of money that should have already been spent for services is a little disturbing. Why did that not happen? delivering these kinds of services, as the commander said, to this population is probably the hardest work there is. I've been on the receiving end of it years ago, and I know what that environment is like. Please bear in mind while looking for the lowest dollar, Commissioner Fish, that cheap is often what you get when you pay cheap. People need to have the proper services. It's not really so much about who does the best job at bidding the job down. It's got to be quality. Those kind of holes in treatment can actually, if there are holes left in treatment, it can actually damage the individual worse than they are when they get there. Broken promises kill people all the time. So please make sure that whatever structure you do institute is designed and geared towards the successful treatment of the individual and not the bottom line.
Thank you. Do you believe from your experience that the service coordination team model is a sound model?
I think that the more organizations you add working together, as you well know, the more complex things get. If you're going to do that, you need to have really, really strong coordination. Teams working together at all times rather than in separate little enclaves and then coming together. Treatment models for success must be holistic indeed. Many problems arise when a group or agency is influenced too much by the need to dispense drugs to take care of problems rather than work on talk therapies and other modes. And other organizations are too concentrated on the religious angle and not really reaching into the people that are there, but rather trying to change them from without. And the kind of change that you're talking about is a process that you can only facilitate for somebody. It's not something you can impose upon them.
Let me be clear if I could. One of the things that I hope to see here is different non-partners partnering to offer the services. The cost would become an issue if someone bid on this and said, we're going to create a housing wing, we're going to staff up, we're going to spend money, and we're going to build a government. I don't want to cheat on quality, and frankly, Amanda and I and Dan have supported this program from the inception, particularly when it was unpopular. So we have a track record, and we're mostly interested in quality services. When there's a solicitation, it is our opportunity to find out how innovative the community is in responding. If you structure a solicitation so only one person bids, we are denied the chance to see if there's something innovative, not just cost, but innovative. And please understand, that's my only concern, not getting the low cost. I'm not looking for the McDonald's of providers here. And the kinds of organizations we're talking about are all organizations with superb track records of dealing with vulnerable communities. I would just like to make sure we get innovation. And that's what our solicitations are often successful at.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks very much. Okay, who's next? Mr. Davis, go ahead.
Please pardon me.
No, thank you.
So I had a few issues here. One of the first things I'd like to bring up is this holistic approach to treatment. I totally agree with the holistic treatment approach. And one way you guys could actually really benefit drug addicts in this town is to send them to Mexico or Canada for Ibogaine treatment. Have you guys ever looked into that Ibogaine treatment? It actually cures almost every addiction from cocaine to heroin to methamphetamine to all kinds of stuff. So you could actually ship people to Canada where they could have Ibogaine treatment, and they might actually break the cycle of addiction instead of continuing to be on methadone or other programs or continually relapse. What Ibogaine does is it actually chemically resets your brain to a pre-addictive state. And it's legal all over Europe. It's legal in Mexico, almost everywhere where Big Pharma doesn't control everything. And, you know, that's one of the big problems in this country is big business and big pharma and everything else is what's controlling it, including all this central city concern. While they do some good work, they do a lot of bad stuff too. And we're talking about barricades amongst the homeless. I mean, they have people sweeping people every day, the most vulnerable people, moving them from one spot to the next. That's a huge barrier when service providers and outreach workers are actually trying to go out and talk to these people. They have to go chase them around all over town. And another thing, you know, Commander Westbrook, she's also on the board of directors at Join. They're one of the only city agencies that actually get notified of homeless sweeps that are going on. And they're supposed to go out and do outreach, which they rarely do. And one thing about Join too is you can't just go to Join. They need to come and see you on the streets. You can't just walk in to Join and access their services. They have to contact you on the streets, and they don't do very much outreach at all. So I'm wondering, you know, why are they not doing a very good job at outreach? And why are they the only city agency? And, you know, and then Central City Concern are this big agency that are actively involved in sweeping people. And so there's a lot of contradictory policies going on that are, you know, shooting one policy, shooting the other one in the foot. And these agencies are actually, you know, you talk about collaboration. I agree they need to collaborate because, you know, I was actually homeless and I fell back to the streets through going through Join, but then I got suggested to go to Cascadia by not my caseworker, but by someone else.
Ask you to wrap up.
And yep, and basically what happened was I went to Cascadia and I was instantly basically approved for housing, where if I would have tried to go through Join again, it would have taken me another 2 years or more to get off the streets.
Thank you.
So, you
Thanks
know,
very much.
So
Appreciate
there's
that.
a lot of barricades here.
Okay, go ahead.
Good morning, council members. For the record, my name is Charles Johnson, and you know, obviously, this is a complex situation. I think there should be some clarification also for the general community. We have a situation where it appears that the police use their discretionary powers to say, hey, I could throw you into the criminal justice system unless you take this service coordination team contract. Or are we dealing with a situation where people have already been convicted and this complements the source? I know a little bit about the situation where people have been convicted because your police spend a lot of time arresting Teresa Rayford, Jonah Major, protesters. We then go and we sit in the courtroom and we see people told, oh, back in the days when weed was illegal, your joint is going to cost you 8 hours of community service. Or, oh, if you go through diversion program, no community service. So while we're sitting right here, close to 100 people are working out their anxiety in the day service room at TPI. How many more at Join? How many more at the Cascade Walk-In Center? If these people really need sheltered, what should I do? Should I print out some flyers, 5 pages of free flyers, and tell them the only way you're going to get help in less than 2 years is if you start carrying around open containers, pissing on the sidewalk, puking, and leaving your beer cans around, so that Ms. Westbrook will send her special service coordination team to accelerate you're becoming a sheltered person. If the service coordination team works, why are so many people suffering on the Springwater corridor? Oh, it's not a policing area. It's not part of the Portland Business Alliance service coordination team partnership. So to echo Mr. Fish's concern, there's not too much concern about the quality of service they're receiving, although it's hard to judge. There's only a little 3-page PDF linked to that. We've heard about 90% success, 10% recidivism. But we have a lot of buildings marked with U's. We have a lot, we don't really report on the amount of space that's available. Central City Concern is a huge landlord in this city. They're empowered to be in a, as is being implied, a position of where it's easier for them to remain the only service provider. And I think that, as you mentioned in your remarks, Mr. Mayor, we want to make sure that we're fostering innovation, and when we find people who can build teams, that we work with partners that have already stepped up, like the Menashe family, and find some inside space where we can do these housing first models, which are the only thing that works. So the Portland Business Alliance may not care that we rescue 50 people if there's still a high number of disturbing, kind of out of control people making things uncomfortable for citizens as we go around our business. So I hope that in addition to this $100,000, this will be done in a way that shakes some things up, and we can not just add 6 beds, but find a way to double the capacity. It's good investment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, there are others on this item?
More person C, Alinsky.
I think she left. Okay, come on up.
Yes, my name is Lightning. I represent Lightning Watchdog PDX. One of the concerns I always have throughout this city is that when we have people that have serious drug addictions currently out on the sidewalks and the doorways, in my opinion, the outreach needs to be taken to its highest level for these individuals. And the reason being is that if somebody has a serious drug addiction and then they're thrown out on the sidewalks and they're not put into transitional housing, this is a safety issue at its highest level. And when we look through the records of how many homeless people have died, when we're averaging a number of, say, 50 to 100 a year, and we start looking at the data that it trickles down to people with addictions, we have to understand the trauma that they're facing when they're out on the streets and society has pushed them away out of their homes, their apartments. Friends have stepped at a distance because law enforcement might say, hey, that's guilt by association. If you're near that person, if you're a friend with that person, we're looking at you also, and we want to know what you're doing. And if it comes down to it, if they're still in your neighborhood, we'll come in and remove you out of your neighborhood. And I've been facing that position where law enforcement has looked at me and said, if you don't work with us, we'll bring every government agency down upon you, we'll shut your business down, we'll run you off your property, we'll go to every relative around you, have the IRS audit them, and we will run you out of your neighborhood. And normally what they do is they end up coming in and they label your property a nuisance. So you have a ONI or something coming in there with some type of authority to tell you to get out of the neighborhood, and you say, look, if they have a drug addiction, they're still my friend and I want to take care of them. I want them to still live here. Can't they still live here? No, you get them out of your property or we'll shut you down. There has to be an understanding that between law enforcement and property owners, that if a property owner says, hey, they're going through treatment, I still want to rent to them. I still want them in my neighborhood. They should have a right to stay in that neighborhood. And that's where the landlords need to step up a little bit more on this, because we're talking about limited amount of space and beds, and to try to help these people and assist them and not take them, push them to the side, and think that they're not your responsibility in the community to try to do the best you can for them with their drug addiction and get the proper treatment. So again, I question a lot of law enforcement, what their intent is, and I want to see more community involvement to understand they're part of the community, take care of them, get them off the sidewalks, and reduce suicides to people with serious drug addictions.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Ms. Alinsky, you were called. Do you want to speak on this item? Let me repeat what I said earlier. We-
Thank you, Mayor
no,
Hales,
let-
for
before you s-
calling me
before you
anyway.
start-
Sorry,
before
I
you
was talking
start,
with the people out of the
excuse
laborers,
me.
and I want to say that it's
Go ahead.
ridiculous. It costs $85 a night to house people in these transitional contractors that have been working with the city since forever. Who's responsible for that? It is a cycle that keeps going. They're making money off of homelessness. It's part of the capitalist system of Portland, and it's not working. $85 a night. I need $50 a month to pay Section 8 that's supposed to be charging us 30% of our income. Now they're charging us 50%, as well as CCC, TPI, 50% of our income. You can't live off of that. Once you pay 50% of your income to rent, you can't live off of that. That's all I need, $50 a month, but there's no support for people who are already housed. It's great to put people in shelters. We need to put them in housing. That'll be better for the city in the long run, better for community involvement. And that's all I want to say on this regard is I've been watching you and I've been interested in the emergency involvement of housing by the city. But CAT, now when you open Street Roots, they have this Rose City resource for everybody who wants to find help in the city. You only have 4 agencies now. 4. After many years of this, I used to work with Street Roots. 4 agencies that pretend to help you, but they don't answer their phone. They're not interested in helping you individually. They're trying to work on state legislation, which is a great thing in and of itself. But meanwhile, the rest of us can't even pay our electricity bills. I have $150 a month electricity bill. I have a slumlord. I have mold throughout my building. I've been homeless for a year now. This is when I first came here in 2006, and I was calling Amanda Fritz Amanda Fish because I thought she was the Bureau of Housing. After all of this, I finally found a place to live, but it takes me 2 hours to get here to testify on behalf of many people who would like to just have $50 a month to pay for a roof over their housing. And while I applaud you for finally in your lame duck session for getting emergency housing for the people on the streets, we're talking 20,000 children that have been identified as homeless in our communities. I teach at one of those schools.
Thank you.
There are many more people on the streets, and we need to house them. The people that are already housed need only a little bit per month, and that'll be much cheaper for the city to keep the housing and put in rent control. When I told the head of the Home Forward that we need rent control, I said, you may be out of a job, but at least you'd be out of a job in a city with rent control.
Thank you. Thanks very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you for calling upon me again, Mayor Hales.
All right, anyone else on this item? Then does council go ahead and want to go ahead and take action? Okay, then let's take a vote, please, on the ordinance.
Well, this was a very good discussion. Obviously, we all care very much about the program. I think Mr. Chadwick made an excellent point about it's not just low bid, it's the effectiveness of treatment services. So I hope that that's included in this evaluation of the solicitations. And I concur with Commissioner Fish that we hope that there are several and that they are all competing to see how good a job they can do. And I will then follow up with you, Mayor, about the additional money and how that should be used. Aye.
Fish.
Aye.
Saltzman.
Aye.
Novick.
I do hope that whoever wins will demonstrate that they're able to get Medicaid reimbursement for services for which Medicaid reimbursement is legally feasible. Aye.
Hale.
Yeah, thank you for this discussion. I'll make sure that the Police Bureau and Ms. Roshan and Deanna Weston Mitchell from my office follow up with you. Thank you. Aye. Okay, it is 10:30. Yes, it is. Let's move, please, to item 149.
Ratify a letter of agreement between the city on behalf of Portland Parks and Recreation and Laborers Local 483, Laborers International Union of North America, that places the city in full compliance with arbitrator David Steitler's May 1, 2015 opinion and award concerning the April 2013 grievance filed under the Recreation Collective Bargaining Agreement.
Do you have any comments before we
I
begin?
actually have a lot of comments, and I'd just like to frame this because this is a very satisfying, important moment in the city of Portland. This agreement is the result of an arbitrator's decision that required the city to cease and desist from assigning bargaining unit work to non-members. I've just recently learned that the practice of using part-time workers in parks to staff our beloved programs started after Measure 5, when Portland Parks employees worked together to continue to provide wonderful services in our community, and that was at the cost of workers being paid less and less and becoming more and more part-time. In last year's budget process, we considered and then required city contract workers such as custodians, security, and parking attendants to receive $15 an hour. And I raised the question of our so-called casual parks employees who work for the city of Portland and get barely more than minimum wage with very few benefits except for paid sick time. I said I would come back in this budget cycle with a proposal to increase wages for all of the low-wage employees in parks. Meanwhile, the arbitrator's decision came out on May 1st of 2015, and we had an urgent requirement under the law to at least bring workers who are definitely doing bargaining unit work into the union. So in July, the council adopted phase 1 of compliance, knowing that there was much more work to be done. With the original deadline of December 1st to complete phase 2, park staff and labor and the city attorney's office and human relations worked long and hard to try to reach an agreement. When it was clear that progress was being made but the deadline could not be achieved, all parties agreed to extend the deadline. And now we have an agreement that all parties agree complies with the arbitration award. Phase 1 and Phase 2 add approximately 130 members to the union, Laborers 483, more than doubling the membership of this bargaining unit. We have also agreed on a path that could expand the number significantly with a new classification. The key to the agreement is a complex task matrix which will dictate what work can be done by union members and what work can be done by casual or seasonal employees. This is all good news. The elephant in the room is that to maintain current levels of service to Portlanders, parks will need an additional $4.2 million in ongoing resources, and this is included in the parks budget request. Coincidentally, that's almost exactly the amount of ongoing resources in the latest economic forecast of $4.4 million of additional ongoing resources. And we know that we have other urgent needs within the city budget. So it's going to be a very challenging budget session. Funding these positions is a huge priority in our city budget for me this year. Any reduction in the request will have significant impacts on the level of service because Parks does not have a choice about complying with the agreement. I consider this agreement one of the most significant achievements of my service on the City Council, and thank you for your support, colleagues, and particularly for your partnership, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Who'd like to start? John?
Good morning, Jonathan Uto, UTO, from Human Resources. The commissioner did such a good job introducing the ordinance. I'll just be available for questions.
Okay. Erica, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you. I'm Erica Askin from Launa Local 483. I'm happy to be before you today in support of this historic agreement that will curb contingent employment and improve the lives of city workers by fairly paying them. We all should be proud of this major accomplishment. There are so many people who made this day happen on the side of labor. It's impossible to name them all, but they know who they are, and they should feel rightly proud in their struggle for justice for workers. Deserving of special recognition today is our member and staff bargaining team. Tom Collette, Will Zeigler, Jenny Burt, Leanne Griffin, Tim Haberman, Marina Morrow, Mary Mobley, and Ted Bryan. There are times when we weren't sure if we were going to make it through, but we kept on pushing forward, and now our countless hours and commitment have made an impact. And we wouldn't be here without our community allies who teamed up with us at the table. Diana Paywu, Executive Director of Portland Jobs with Justice, and Justin Kurtzen, Director of Oregon 15 Now. Because of you all, hundreds more people are going to be added to your list of people you've supported in earning a living wage in Oregon.
and set the standard for wages in local employment. On management side, Eileen Argentina, Josh Green, Nancy Roth, Brenda Carpenter, Margaret Evans, Craig Vanderbout, and Terry Davis. Those meetings, sketching out hundreds and hundreds of duties in our community centers, sun schools, and rec areas, they got kind of tough at times. It was long and drawn out in terms of just going through all of the duties in the famous task matrix. They put in a ton of work, and they did this because they were committed to cooperating with labor. We appreciate all that management did to understand our perspectives and to share their perspectives with us. A special thanks goes out to Jeff Schaefer, who did a great job explaining a complex situation for Parks and Rec in a way that made sense. Last but not least, from our respective teams, the attorneys who originally litigated this case and then worked jointly to support meaningful and cooperative negotiations built on a foundation of mutual respect and understanding. Barbara Diamond, our labor attorney, and Heidi Brown, City of Portland attorney. Thanks goes out to them for truly being proactive in our labor relations in order to get us to a real solution. The greatest hope that I have is that it stays that way in the City of Portland. City Council has worked alongside Local 483 on the issue of contingent labor for my tenure as business manager. Mayor Hales and Commissioner Fritz, Josh Alpert and Tim Crail, and all of your staff in your offices, you put forward amazing work, and you deserve special recognition. There are tireless advocacy on both sides. And it's because of you that we're achieving today's agreement. Without the advice of your staff and without your personal advice, your time, your constant effort, we would not be here today. And then finally, Local 483's Executive Board, Wesley, Farrell Richards, Will Tucker, Cassie Diaz, and Ellen Eno, who set the direction for Local 483 to make this happen. By ensuring City of Portland rec staff receive living wages, we're not only making the city a fair place to work, we're setting an example for all employers within our city and state. Our collective work in creating this agreement, work that was at times challenging, at times arduous, and at times even contentious, lights the way for fellow workers in both the private and public sector as they strive for fair pay, benefits, and recognition in the workplace. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. Yeah, let's suspend the rules. This is an unusual moment. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Wesley Buchholz, Buchholz. I work with Laborers Local 483, and I'm also an employee of Portland Parks and Recreation. For years, so-called casual work staff working in our recreation centers have been doing the same work as their permanent counterparts for almost half the pay. These casual staff, many who have worked for the city for 9, 10, even 24 years, year after year after year, have had to make do with poverty wages in a city that now has the fastest rising rents in the nation. This has meant workers have had to forego important doctor's visits, apply for food stamps to put food on the table. It has meant that rec staff have left the very communities they served in order to find housing for their families. It has meant empty cupboards, empty bank accounts, and a number of disturbing cases, bankruptcy and homelessness. This practice not only hurt rec staff, it hurt our communities. When high-quality staff have to choose between serving communities they love and health insurance, between taking care of seniors and impoverished youth and making their rent payments, we all lose. Today, because of a decade-long effort spearheaded by recreation staff and Laborers 483, this practice is about to end. The City Council will have the opportunity to vote for a historic agreement that will provide fair wages, benefits, and a voice in the workplace for City of Portland rec staff. This plan is an important step forward. Under the leadership of Mayor Hales and Commissioner Fritz, working collaboratively with Portland Parks and Recreation Management, we have collectively negotiated a fair agreement, an agreement that can create 130 living wage positions by this fall. 130 living wage positions. We can clap for that. An agreement that respects the rights of these workers to come together and collective bargainly in the city. An agreement that for the first time ever draws clear lines preventing future workers from being paid less to do the exact same work of their permanent counterparts while keeping wage standards clear for current members. I want to commend the council for supporting this work, for recognizing the value the rec staff provide our communities, and for looking inward to ensure the city is treating its workers fairly. Thank you.
Thank you. Well said.
I also want to say that this agreement is not enough. For if we truly want to stand behind city workers to stand for fairness, to step away from decades of poverty wages that the city employees endured, council needs to fund the budget request presented in this agreement. We all know that a problem the size of recreation staff have faced for years can't be solved in a few lines in an ordinance. Words can't erase poverty. It takes action. It takes paying our workers fairly. I want to be clear on this point. When the city council says we need to take action to stem the tide of rising rents, it begins in the city's own house with its own employees. When hundreds of city employees can't afford the rent, that is a housing problem. When city employees are forced to live at home with their parents or to find themselves commuting far away from the jobs they have, this is a housing problem. City employees, like any type of worker, deserve a wage that allows them to live in the city they serve. For those reasons, we are excited to see the passage of today's agreement and look forward to the city council making the right decision to fund this package in the coming months. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well said. Thank you all. You're here. Are there others that would like to speak on this item?
I have a sign-up sheet. I have 4 people signed up. The first 3, please come on up, are Jenny Burt, Will Ziegler, and Farrell Richards.
Either side.
Parting the waters for you. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Jenny Burt. I am a recreation coordinator at Mount Scott Community Center, and on March 1st, I will enter into my 17th year as a represented employee for Portland Parks and Recreation. I'm excited to be here today to support the recreation agreement. With each budget year for a majority of my tenure with Parks, we have endured significant cuts to our budget, resulting in the loss of full-time benefited positions. At the same time, annual revenue expectations have notably increased, resulting in substantial growth in staff workloads. With fewer and fewer represented staff to maintain these ever-growing expectations, it was inevitable that bargaining unit work trickled down to low-wage, so-called casual staff in order to maintain the programs and services that Portlanders value and deserve. This practice hurt represented staff by devaluing our work. It also took advantage of unrepresented staff who continue to face poverty wages. Today's agreement sets clear lines for all recreation employees, preventing a slide into low-wage work like the one we just experienced. It ensures all recreation staff will be paid properly and fairly for their work. It creates new full-time benefited positions, returning many of the jobs lost to budget cuts over the years. This important step forward ensures respect, fair wages, and helps alleviate staff facing staggering workloads. It's also good for the community we serve. When staff are fairly paid, Parks can retain great talent and ensure the quality recreation opportunities Portlanders have come to count on and expect from our award-winning Bureau. I want to end by giving credit to all the represented and unrepresented staff who over the years have continued to speak up and advocate for a better park system and workplace. I also want to thank PP&R management for working with us to create this better system with today's agreement. To Commissioner Fritz, thank you for your encouragement and support of all recreation staff and for making today's agreement possible. I also want to thank you, Mayor and Commissioners, for your time and consideration. I'm truly honored and blessed to be able to serve this community, the dedicated staff I work with every day, this great Bureau, and the city in which I was lucky enough to be born and raised. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. Who'd like to be next?
I'll go next. Hello, wonderful to see you all again. My name is William Ziegler, and I'm a casual employee at Mount Scott Community Center in Southeast Portland, a wonderful center with some of the best employees and patrons in the city. On December 2nd, 2015, I spoke to you on behalf of unrepresented recreation workers. On that day, I asked you to voluntarily recognize the wishes of rec staff who wanted to join together in a union. Today, I am happy to be here in support of an agreement that contains voluntary recognition. Voluntary recognition means my coworkers and I will have access to a fair democratic process that allows us to join a union and bargain for living wages and benefits. When I look at my coworkers, I see wonderful, talented, and intellectual people who care for the city, who care for the people in it, and people who care about the work that they do. People like Aaron Hunt. Aaron Hunt is a crucial part of our community center. He helps keep our gymnastic and sports classes running, and he has a real knack for coaching children. He's worked for the community center for around 10 years, but still struggles to make just above minimum wage. Another one of our staples is Jake Silberman, who works many jobs, such as gym attendant, sports instructor, and teen room attendant. Jake makes several trips to the center in a day just to be able to pick up enough hours to afford his rent. People have stretched themselves paper thin to make sure that our patrons get the best they can, even if it means these employees run out of hours early in the year or that they have to work multiple jobs to get by. Today is a milestone for myself and other casual workers. Through this agreement, we see a way forward to living wages and opportunities for full-time work. So, I want to leave by respectfully making one more request, because it will take more than an ordinance to provide the living wages rec staff deserve. So, Mayor Hales, commissioners, can I count on you to fully fund this agreement in the upcoming budget? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning.
Morning. My name is Farrell Richards. Mayor Hales, commissioners. I'm on the Executive Board of Laborers Local 483. I worked for 12 years for the City of Portland. I started off as a seasonal with Parks and Recreation and went on to work for 10 years for maintenance operations. Having worked as a seasonal, I know firsthand what that's like, having no benefits. They didn't have health care at the time, and low wages. I remember, in fact, would return cans and bottles, just kind of have some walking around money. And I remember sharply being at Fred Meyer one time and being shamed for bringing in more bottles than the daily allowance. So moments like that, I know that our casual workers have endured are painful moments. I know that when I went into a union represented full-time job with better wages, benefits, and job protections, my life was greatly improved. And I know that the actions being taken by the council have the potential to positively impact the lives of these recreation workers for the better. You've heard from Will and the others what it's like, and it's a real struggle. They do important work for our communities, and they're members of those communities. So when recreation workers get a fair wage and their jobs are held in higher esteem and they're represented, then the City of Portland becomes a more of an example to others as an employer. And I know it's difficult. Erica talked about the struggles we've gone through trying to get to where we're at now, but I do appreciate the city working with Laborers Local 483 to get to this point. I think it's important that we go through those struggles together, and I hope that we continue forward and an ever more positive manner to keep making the lives of working people better. So I appreciate your efforts in that.
Thank you. Thank you all.
The last two who signed up are Crystal Alinsky and Diana Pei Wu.
Come on up.
Do you want to go first?
Go ahead, Crystal.
Hi, my name is Diana Peiwu. I'm the Executive Director of Portland Jobs with Justice. I also just want to extend my thanks to the council and to all of the hard work at Laborers 483 for making this happen. I'm a user at East Portland Center, and so it's really nice to know as a resident of Portland, but also as part representing the organization, the 110 organizations that are part of Portland Jobs with Justice, that this is a huge step for workers in the city, but also important for the rest of the metropolitan area. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello. Hello, my name is Crystal Lelinski, and I would like to second that motion. I'm really impressed with the with these union groups. Basically, we have the unions that continue to fight, and it's been 3 years since I first came to the Parks and Recreation Bureau with Amanda Fritz, and I was concerned that they were hiring park rangers part-time at low wages. I was surprised to experience a kind of a defensiveness and backlash that things were going well, but all along these groups have stood their ground on wages. Unite Here was one of the first, and even though I questioned their work with the Lloyd Center, at the time it was the Lloyd Center Neighborhood Association, they were advocating that everybody should get paid a living wage. I remember Lightning PDX arguing that the commissioner should be paid $50 an hour. Well, at the time, I was arguing that everyone should be paid $50 an hour. I'd come back from Eastern Europe where people were, in Portland, I argued that we should earn $15 an hour, and that was in 2001. A living wage here in Portland, according to the PSU study a few years ago, was $17 an hour. In order for us to support our city workers and to make a stance against the lukewarm work at the state legislation, and I'll point out the governor and Michael Dembro. I've talked to him directly. I think we're too slow on a state level. Here in Portland, we can make a stance like we have with Mayor Hills with the environmental issues, and with the DOJ investigating our police, and as well as with the Bureau of Parks and Recreation. We are making a stance that there is a way to get past this, and we don't have to stand for waiting till 2022 to give people a wage that will not even be a living wage. So let's stand here together today in solidarity with the city workers and make this the norm.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Good morning, City Council members. For the record, my name is Charles Johnson, and it's great to have Jobs with Justice up here and some of the issues that Ms. Alinsky has raised, because we're talking about a strong success here for Parks and Recreation workers. There's more than just pay involved in why they need a union. The Parks and Recreation Department has made good strides on using less toxic chemicals in parks to benefit both the employees and all the citizens that go there. But when we talk about a living wage and quality work done by city employees, what we really need to do is have the Portland Bureau of Environmental Quality. We need a whole new funded division, because we know that in our parks, people are being poisoned by toxins from bullseye glass and from another polluter in the Northeast. We can't abdicate our safety to remote governments, whether they're in Salem or in Washington, D.C. Local communities need to build strong, trustworthy local governments that provide results for Laborers Local 483, for all city employees, and protect our communities. So when we talk about unions doing well here, we also need to talk about the fact that the workers at Bullseye Glass needed a union that would look out for poisons in the air they were breathing and pumping out to other people in this city. So I hope that the whole union movement, together with the general human rights and the environmental movement, will work together to remember that living wage means quality, safe working conditions with an adequate wage. The fact that these people have got a wage that still doesn't take them up to the level of precision cast parts isn't so
Warren
bad
Buffett.
because they're not poisoning the earth.
Warren Buffett.
So this great hard, it shouldn't have had to been a hard-won victory, but Jobs with Justice is used to that. And so are the labor unions. But we need to look at this in the larger context of right now, other workers need to see this as an example, organize, protect their health, get a balanced package of fair wages and safe working conditions. I'm glad to live in a city where we're moving forward to do that for all of our employees. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Are there others?
That's all who signed up.
Okay. Anyone else? Any council questions? Then let's take a vote, please.
This is a great day. Thank you so much, everybody, for both for being here and for all of your work over the past many months. Particularly proud of our park staff, Eileen Argentina, the manager of recreation, who attended most of the sessions and will be responsible for implementing the agreement and knows so much about all of our park systems. It's almost scary. So thank you, Eileen. Terry Davis spent many hours developing the task matrix, working closely with Josh Green, who provided great expertise on what happens on the ground in recreation centers. Nancy Roth brought the aquatics expertise to the table. Margaret Evans and Craig Vanderbout, who attended the negotiations regularly and added their expertise to the discussion. And Citywide Programs Manager Doug Brenner, who attended when needed, provided counsel and feedback throughout the process behind the scenes. He is greatly missed today at this celebration. Thank you to City Attorney Heidi Brown and HR Director Anna Canwit. This is an amazing achievement for all of us. Human Resources staff John Uto, Cheyenne Scott, and Brenda Carpenter. Erica Askin mentioned Tom Collette and other members of their bargaining team. I just want to add Sarah Kowaleski, who is a casual worker, so-called, at the Multnomah Arts Center, and who isn't here today because she's working. She did speak at the Jobs with Justice Faith Labor Breakfast yesterday, and I was so proud that she was representing Parks and Laborers 483 at that event. Tim Crail, my chief of staff, attended most of the negotiation sessions and helped keep the process on track when difficulties arose. And the mayor and Josh Alford both played strategic roles in getting to an agreement that works for both labor and the city. I'm sure there are others who played a role that I haven't mentioned. And thank you so much to everybody who's participated. Particular thanks to Erica Askin, who has done an amazing job in her years at Laborers 483 and who is now moving to SEIU, Service Employees International. She will be missed and also appreciated in her new role. Thanks to Dr. Pei Wu for being here today and for your partnership and your support of all workers. This is a great example of government and workers working together, and I am very grateful to be part of it. Aye.
Fish.
I want to begin, I didn't actually know that news about Erica, but congratulations. I want to begin with what Erica Askin said when she came forward and she talked about collaboration. In my 7 years, we have had plenty of contract ratification votes where there were no labor partners in the room. And I think it really speaks to the work that the mayor and Commissioner Fritz have done, that we have the leadership and members. And frankly, the comments that Erica Askin made, I don't remember a speech like that before at a moment like this. And I really appreciate the fact that our labor partner came forward and said this was done in a spirit of collaboration and then acknowledged all the people who participated, including the management people. And frankly, there's so little collaboration generally in politics that if the labor and management family in the public sector can't find middle ground, then we're really in trouble. So Erica, I really appreciate your comments. They were extremely gracious, and you laid out the case. And I want to thank you for that. Commissioner Fritz, in 20 years when we get together for a celebration of your life's work, I know what you're going to identify as the stuff you're most proud of. Earned sick leave for workers that set the stage for a statewide change. Building out parks on the east side so that east side families had access to safe places to play. Launching an Office of Equity so that the city was actually serious about putting equity into everything we do. I'm not going to go through the whole list because I don't want your head to get too big. But I know as your friend that working to raise the standards of parks employees is as close to the core reason why you have this job as anything. And so I really deeply appreciate your leadership on this. The mayor often likes to say that there are 4 former and current parks commissioners on this dais. But there was one parks commissioner who made the biggest stride in addressing this practice and making a big down payment. So Commissioner Frisch, thank you. And finally, we're not a committee of the budget today, and we cannot make, there was an ask, it deserves a response. We can't make promises today, but here's the commitment I will make. During this budget process, I will work in good faith with the Parks Commissioner in charge to find the resources to honor the agreement she has struck. And so to the cynics out there who say, easy for you to say because you have 2 non-general fund funded bureaus, I would say, yeah, but I used to have 2 general fund bureaus, so I know the challenge, and it's not about my bureaus, it's about what's best for the city. So Commissioner Fritz, I pledge to work with you in good faith to find as much of the resources we can to fund this historic agreement, which would not really have happened without your leadership and the mayor's full support. And to the employees that are here, just one last comment. You won the gold medal as the best managed park system in the country, meaning the work that the line workers do, the work of the line workers of this bureau during the teeth of the recession, which meant you were recognized at a time when we were cutting budgets, we had inadequate staffing, and everyone was asked to do more. I hope you realize that made that award twice as special, because it was a reflection on the hard work and dedication of people doing great work under difficult circumstances. So, Erica, best of wishes to you as you head to SEIU. To our labor family, thank you for your work and making this day possible. And to Commissioner Fritz and the mayor, I think you've done something important today, and I'm pleased to support your work. Aye.
Councilman?
Well, I also want to thank Commissioner Fritz and Mayor Hales and their staffs. We know how important staffs are to making deals happen. So this is a great deal. Special thanks to Local 483 for their willingness to be persistent, which they don't really have to be prodded to do that. They are persistent, and I think it's evidenced by the agreement that's in front of us today. And I definitely also want to recognize, although they were all mentioned, but particularly our HR representatives, Jonathan Uto and Anna Canwood and everybody else in her shop who plays an important role in getting everybody to yes, which is where we are today. Pleased to support this agreement. Aye.
Novick?
I am pleased to support this agreement, and I'm not going to repeat everything my colleagues have said, but I do want to thank Erica in particular for thanking both my friend Barbara Diamond and Heidi Brown of the City Attorney's Office, because the lawyers just never get enough credit, so really appreciate you giving them credit. And I do want to just toss out a word of fiscal caution, and this does not in any way reduce my enthusiasm for this agreement, because I would frankly rather be a city that treats its workers well and has fewer services than a city that doesn't treat its workers well and has more services. But as Commissioner Fritz mentioned, the cost of implementing this agreement is virtually identical to the new ongoing revenue we expect with the current budget forecast. And we are looking at other budget issues that affect our employees. Right now, we've got 13 firefighters that are funded with one-time revenue, and that's not right, and we need to make sure that their jobs are permanent. In one of my own bureaus, the Bureau of Emergency Communications, we have a problem with people being way overworked or understaffed. People are being forced to do overtime time and time again. So I'm going to be asking for additional resources for BOAC. And right now, we don't have the resources to do all these things. So just to be clear, that absent an improvement in the revenue forecast, we probably are going to have to cut services somewhere unless we can come up with additional revenue somehow. So I invite everybody who cares about providing adequate services and treating workers well to join us in trying to figure out if there's any reasonable way to get additional revenue. That said, I'm honored to support this agreement. Aye.
Hales?
Well, I want to second all the comments, both from my colleagues and from SEIU, and sorry, we've already reassigned you, and from Erica and the rest of Local 483. This is a great accomplishment, and it's also a great accomplishment, not just that we've done it, but in how it was done. And I think that was well articulated here. Erica, you and your team not only negotiated honorably, but you understand the big picture. You understand the pressures that this council is under to do the right thing in lots of different ways with resources that aren't infinite. Whether it's housing people who are living on the street, whether it's keeping people from losing their homes by eviction, whether it's dealing with gang-affected kids. There are lots of legitimate calls on us as community leaders and as budgeters to spend appropriately to make this a better place for people. That's the bottom line. And you understand that, and it's obvious in what you stated today, and in how you've conducted yourselves through this negotiation, that you understand the context of this work. And that's very helpful, because having just spent yesterday, along with my colleague, Commissioner Saltzman in Salem, seeing the warring special interests at work in that building, I think it's important to note that when an interest group, and a union is an interest group, conducts itself in this kind of honorable, big picture way, that that's something to be recognized. So I want to recognize that. It's work well done. And then the work that's being done by your members is work well done as well. What happens in our community centers and in our park system is one of the best parts of Portland. And it's a way we take care of our people every day. You do it, we know. And any of us who ever has the chance, as I do occasionally, to walk into a community center or spend time in our parks and see the magic of the work that you do, it's priceless. And we want you to know that we feel that and that we believe that. So this is a good day, doing more of the right thing for more people, more to do. And with your help and with this kind of collaborative effort, I have great confidence that we'll do it well. Thank you. Aye. It's done. Thank you very much. Okay. It's not going to get any better than that this morning, but we'll move on. Let's move on to item 150, please.
Vacate a portion of North Lombard Street between North Richmond Avenue and North Charleston Avenue, subject to certain conditions and reservations.
Commissioner Novick, do you have some comments at the outset here before we return to this item?
Actually, we have an amendment consistent with council's direction at our last meeting to add, which we were informed by the city attorney's office doesn't require additional testimony because we'd agreed to the concept. So I'd actually like to put that amendment on the table.
Steve, I'll second the amendment. I have just one question. When we had the hearing last week, actually in the mayor's absence, there were three parties to that amendment. The commissioner in charge, you, the applicant, and Commissioner Fritz. Have all three parties concurred in this amendment?
That is my understanding.
All right, so I second the amendment.
Okay, the amendment's before us. Why don't you describe it, Commissioner Novick?
The amendment before us would add a condition to Directive B4. Prior to recording the street vacation, the applicant will execute a non-exclusive perpetual public use easement for the plaza areas in a format satisfactory to the Director of the Bureau of Transportation. The easement will contain language that requires city council approval prior to any modification of or release of the public use easement.
Okay, thank you very much.
I actually have a friendly amendment to that to add for the plaza areas identified in Land Use Review 15-213895 DZM. Because it's the specific plaza areas that were approved in the design review, and that was the concern. I don't want to withdraw that and then come back with a smaller plaza.
That sounds okay to me. Kurt, Lance, does that sound okay to you?
Yeah, that should be okay.
Okay, ties it together.
Thank you, yes.
Okay.
And then I had a second concern about the St. John's sign, and I'm not seeing that as a condition of approval in that design review that I specified, nor particularly in the findings for that. So I'm wondering if we need a second amendment, not to the, as a condition of approval, but as a now therefore, to add after A, let's see. I was told it was B, but it's not B. Sorry. I don't know where it goes, but it would be a condition that says after the street vacation is complete, the Welcomes to St. John's sign will be replaced as part of the development in Plaza 2 with input from the community regarding the precise location.
Commissioner, on page 1, finding 4, currently recites the Welcome to Historic St. John's sign will be removed from the proposed vacation area and will be relocated at the time of the petitioner's development to a new public plaza that will be constructed within the public right-of-way to the immediate northeast of its current location. The relocation plan was included as part of the land use review and is supported by both PBOT and the Bureau of Development Services. Does that not address your concern?
It does. I did not see that, so thank you.
Yeah, I think that's captured it, and then we can also make sure council direction is clear on that.
But the challenge to the immediate northeast, the concern that I heard from the community in public testimony was the specific location, and since it will be in the right-of-way, my understanding is PBOT has the sole jurisdiction as to exactly where it goes, and that wasn't necessarily specified in the land use review. Is that correct?
Kurt Kruger with PBOT. Actually, the sign's specific location was identified in the site plan that went through the design review process because we took the right-of-way with the application through design review. So,
okay. So the legislative intent then, which I can state on the record, is that it will be in the location, even though it's not specified as a condition of approval, it will be in that location. Yes. I didn't necessarily hear any concern from community members that that was the wrong location. Was there any testimony to that effect at the design review?
I don't recall any testimony.
Yeah, I haven't heard any either.
Okay. And then my final concern last week was about the colony sign, which is currently in the right-of-way. It's not permitted to be in the right-of-way, and my understanding is you're going to work with the property owner of the colony to move the sign onto her property, and if necessary, that you would come back to council with some kind of a variance if it turns out that the sign is non-conforming, so that that property owner is made whole. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And with that, Commissioner, yes, I'm fine.
Colleagues, I also want to add that at the suggestion of a constituent for St. John's, I wanted council to join me in giving this directive to PBOT, which is, as part of the permit process, please require the developer to keep the St. John's sign visible during construction and provide detour signage letting people know businesses are still open.
That's council direction, doesn't have to be actually in the ordinance. Okay. Other comments, questions, amendments? Anything further from our staff? Okay, then let's take a vote, please.
Fritz?
Well, it was a very good public hearing last week with a lot of robust testimony. Clearly, this is an issue on which reasonable people can and do disagree. On balance, I, as I mentioned last week, wished that the street vacation had happened first, because then we could have given some direction as to the orientation and the size and the location of the building. Since the applicant has the right to choose to do it either way, I would have preferred the corner that juts into the existing right-of-way not of the building that had not been there, but that's not one of the choices before me today, and it's certainly not reasonable to send the applicant back through the design review process with an amendment. I want to acknowledge both Kurt Kruger and Lutz Lindahl for your work on this project and for working with the community and the applicant and the adjacent property owners. It's another good example of city staff working with the community and with your commissioner and the council to come up with something that, although it doesn't make everybody happy, I on balance, think that it's the right thing to do. Aye.
Fish?
Yeah, I want to echo what Commissioner Fritz said. I thought we had a really terrific hearing last week, and there was a lot of passion in the room, but there was a lot of respect, and it was a very civil proceeding. And what I heard was really from a lot of people, particularly longtime residents, I heard a concern about the character of their community. And at a time when the city is going through big growing pains, that's a frequent conversation. How do we maintain the character? And I think we have to be sensitive to that while also fulfilling our obligation to prepare the city for the growth that we see coming. And so for me, there were there were two issues that tipped the balance in favor of supporting. One was the safety issues that were carefully placed on the record, and I found very compelling some of the parents who talked about the challenges they had taking their children across that street past Ivy Island to get to their school a block away. And there actually was a lot of testimony about that intersection being unsafe. And I think that while it's appropriate for us to be thinking about East Portland safety issues where we haven't invested enough, I don't think we should disregard places like St. John's that have a right to have safe streets, safe walks to school. And so that was very compelling to me. The other thing that was compelling was the work that was pulled out of the Lombard plan and the idea that we envision doing development, but in a rational way. And here we have a chance to really actually create a more rational streetscape and an intersection which then can be controlled for the benefit of pedestrians and drivers. I thank Commissioner Fritz and Commissioner Novick for working out the issues they had in a collaborative way. We set this thing over so they could do it, and I think they've done it in an exemplary way. I want to acknowledge the applicant, because the applicant was testifying last time and had counsel here, and my recollection is on almost every issue that came up, the applicant indicated a willingness to go the extra mile to work with the community. So if we sort of project forward, I would say the best indicator of someone's behavior in the future is how have they treated folks in the past. And over the last year, I think we have to acknowledge that he's gone the extra mile and engaged people in good faith, and I want to thank him. And everyone's going to have a different opinion about the building, but to me, it's a very attractive building, and I hope it sets a standard in that area for the kind of redevelopment to follow. And finally, I also want to acknowledge staff. These two gentlemen routinely come before us on stuff that's mind-bogglingly complicated. And in fact, Kurt always has an immediate answer to some technical question. I think Commissioner Fritzen is sometimes, I think, looking to test whether you really have read the fine print of the code. But you always have an answer, and you're always very clear about guiding us. And you make our job easier, both of you, through the professionalism that you exhibit every time you come before us. So thank you. And today I'm pleased to vote aye.
Colleagues, I need to interrupt to discuss a clarification as to what we're actually voting on. I was under the impression that because we had approved this amendment, the amendment in concept last week, we didn't need to have a separate vote on the amendment and we could proceed to a vote on the whole thing, but the city attorney seems to have other ideas. I asked the city attorney to elaborate.
You didn't, as far as I know, you didn't have the language. You moved and you seconded
I'm
the
sorry,
amendment today.
that was
So
my error, yes.
I was going to certainly clarify once you did this, that this will need to be carried over to next week for a vote. Since it's a non-emergency ordinance, you'll make the vote on the amendments today. You don't need to take any testimony next week. But
And since we won't have a full house next week, I think it's still appropriate to.
we'll make our comments today.
Make our comments with the amendment if we choose, because I don't think.
Start over voting as if it's on the amendment.
Yeah, so we're voting on the amendment.
So just to be clear, my comments are both support of the amendment. And in the off chance we don't have a full house or people coming next week for this event, I just want to put my comments on the record in advance. And again, thank everybody and vote aye.
Boltzmann?
So we're voting on the amendment, okay. Well, I'll also make my comments on the whole package. Well, I appreciate the hearing we had last week, and I thought a lot of good issues were raised. I guess I'm, drawn to what I feel is happening in St. John's, and, there's a lot of things happening in St. John's. One is that due to a lot of issues, housing affordability, other things, and just being a great neighborhood, it has become one of the most desirable places in the city to live. And when people are moving to your neighborhood, there's going to be associated changes that come with it. More businesses, more prosperous businesses to serve people who live in St. John's. And I think the other thing going for St. John's is it still maintains its quirkiness, its notions of independence. And I think we all see that every May when we all participate in the parade. What a great sense of camaraderie and neighborhood pride people who live in St. John's feel. But we do have a lot of converging forces coming to work here. And I think that this proposal, which will, in my opinion, make the Lombard intersection more safer, and with James John Elementary there, it's not a small issue to make that intersection more safe. I do think that there's been a tree mitigation plan that the Planning Sustainability Commission has required to be submitted to offset some of the loss of what sound like some great trees. I go by Ivy Island every year in the parade, but I can't quite picture the trees, but I take on the testimony that they're there. So I think that this is a change that needs to occur, and I think it's a change that is a positive change for the neighborhood. And I think that with safer intersections, what looks like attractive development, public plazas, this will help contribute to the sense of place that St. John's already is and will continue to aspire to be. Aye.
Novick?
I really appreciate the hard work of Kurt and Lance and the rest of PBOT staff and the participation of the applicant. Thank you, Commissioner Fritz, for your input. And I appreciate Commissioner Saltzman mentioning safety, because that's the reason that we in PBOT are particularly excited about this proposal, is will improve safety for pedestrians. Aye.
Mayor, may I just interrupt and clarify that I was also voting aye on the amendment, just in case that was not clear. And also, I love it when we have two votes, because I then remember, especially when I'm first up to vote, because then I remember something else I was planning to say. And that was in Hillsdale, where there was a big development just at the gateway to Hillsdale, the developer very graciously agreed to put up a big welcome to Hillsdale sign rather than a welcome to whatever the development is called. And that might be something to request of the applicant, that in their signage for their building, that they consider making it welcome to St. John's with a minor feature, because I think that will buy them a lot of goodwill and be greatly appreciated by the community. So with that, I vote aye on the amendment, as well as I'm going to vote aye on the other one next week.
Well, again, my apologies for the procedural confusion, but I think we got through that. I wasn't here for the hearing. I had a chance to review the record and the tape, and I think it was a very good discussion. And I want to second the comments that have been made. There's an art to this, both what we do here in making public decisions and what people do in the private sector when they plan projects. There's an architect's term that one of our local editorial writers likes to jeer at, as if we made it up, which is placemaking, but we didn't. Architects know that word, so do planners, and some lawyers. And that's what we do here. We try to make change fit the place in a thoughtful way. There's going to be change, and we love the place, St. John's and others that have their own character. I think that's been well accomplished here, and that the combination of what's happening in the public realm with this street vacation and the orientation of this project and what's happening on the private property is good placemaking. And it really is important that we keep figuring out how to do that, because there's going to be a lot of change in Portland. There's a lot of change right now. And this is an excellent example of how it gets done well. So thank you. Well done. Aye. Okay, and we will take action next week with probably much less discussion on the amended proposal. Okay, let's move on, please, to the remaining regular agenda items, starting with 154.
Authorize a contract with Nevu Nan Associates for design and construction administration services for the Ventura Park Play Area improvements and loo installation for a total not to exceed amount of $120,000.
Commissioner Fritz.
Mary,
let's see.
could we do the next one,
Yeah,
please,
sure.
Mayor?
Sure. 155. Let's take 155, and when Mary Ann gets back, we'll take 154.
155, authorized contract with Place Studio LLC for master planning for the Washington Park Master Plan Update Project at a not-to-exceed amount of $368,800.
Okay. Commissioner Fritz.
Thank you, and introducing Emily Roth, who will present on behalf of Portland Parks and Recreation.
Hi, welcome. Thank you for welcoming to council. As you know, Washington Park is one of our oldest parks in our system. It was originally called City Park. We have a plan that was completed in 1988 for the park, and since then, many things have changed. For instance, when we did the plan, the OMSI was at Washington Park, and now the Children's Museum has moved in. Max has gone in. Many changes have happened to the park. And we want to take this opportunity to update the park, rebrand it, and take into consideration all those changes that have happened. So to do this, PP&R went through a competitive RFP process to select the consultant team for the update of the master plan. We received 5 proposals and then interviewed 3 teams. Every team that proposed would have done an excellent job. The interview committee selected Place Studios LLC as the winning proposer to update the plan. 78% of the Place team are minority, women, and/or emerging small businesses. They are located in downtown Portland and have experienced working in Washington Park and throughout the world. We have budgeted for a robust public involvement process that will enable us to interface with various users of the park and communities outside the local neighborhoods. PP&R is looking forward to working with Place and their team to create a new master plan for one of our oldest and most visited park in our system. Questions, comments?
So, could you refresh my memory? It says this is to be paid out of Washington Park parking revenues.
That is correct.
Are those revenues
Those are
rolled off from the park's other general fund?
Yes, these are all revenues that are generated from the parking that has now been put into Washington Park. We're getting a revenue about $2 million a year now, and that money is being used to either do park improvements and as part of the TMA, which is now called Explore Washington Park. One of our commitments was to update the management plan for that park. And so over the last 2 years, $400,000 has been set aside for this planning effort.
So when we created the whole transportation management plan and area, we consciously dedicated parking revenues to go towards, as you said, park improvements and other things.
That is correct. All of it is spent in Washington Park.
Yeah, I remember us actually making a pretty clear commitment that the money would stay in Washington Park and would be used for activities that benefited the whole system, so the transportation, the planning, et cetera. I have a question about the master plan. In light of the schedule that we've been reading about for capital construction at Lincoln High School at some point, have we had discussions with the district about some kind of interim field use in Washington Park?
Not that I know of, but I'll make a note and get back to you.
I think we have actually at a executive level.
Okay, thank you.
And there's
Commissioner
some challenges with that. But I'd be happy to follow up with you, Commissioner Fish.
So I think the biggest challenge that I'm aware of is that we might have a high school that doesn't have a place to play. So it's an issue I care a lot about. And if there are options for interim field, I'd like to know about them and how we might be able to facilitate that. Or if there's an alternative parks facility that could be made available to the high school during the construction. But it's an issue we've heard from a number of people on, and I know the Parks Bureau cares deeply about fields, but I'd like to have a follow-up on that to know what our options are.
Be happy to follow up with you.
Okay, other questions for Emily? Thank you very much. Anyone want to speak on this item?
No one signed up.
Okay, then let's take a vote, please. It's an emergency order.
I have to add one little thing to that ordinance. I got a little note from the Treasury office just before I came down here that we have to add that they can also receive their check through ACH. So just a little technical difficulty that wasn't caught, which means they can have we automatically pay them. We do not have to issue them a check. So payment can be done by ACH, which
That has
is
to be added to the ordinance?
Where would it go in the ordinance?
just on the very last part of the ordinance, on number 2, it says reimbursement through check on the city.
Says are hereby authorized to draw and deliver checks.
Yes.
So we could just say pay, delete, hereby authorized to pay Place Studio, deleting draw and deliver checks.
That is correct.
I move that amendment. Thank you.
Second?
I'll second it, but just for purposes of the future, if there's a clause that says they get payment, I think we would delegate to the Bureau the decision about how the payment is actually affected. And changing technology at some point. If you want to pay them through an iPhone, that's your privilege. I don't think the council's intending to limit the manner in which you pay.
We'll change our standard language.
Yeah, we got to change our standard language at purchasing so that that's the case. Because
Something
that
that says we'll make payment at our discretion,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
I've
so
moved that and
roll
say-
call on the amendment.
Second.
Take a vote on the amendment, please.
Fritz.
Aye.
Fish.
Aye.
Saltzman.
Aye.
Novick.
Aye.
Hales.
Aye. Okay. Anyone want to speak on this item? No one did? Okay, then roll call on the amended emergency ordinance.
Fritz.
Good catch, Emily in the Treasury Department. Thank you, Emily Roth, Brett Horner, and Kiaselli at Portland Parks and Recreation, and to the volunteers and staff on the new Explore Washington Park, which formerly known as the Washington Park Transportation Management Association. Aye.
Fish.
Aye.
Saltzman.
Aye.
Novick.
Aye.
Hales.
Aye, thank you. Okay, let's go back to 154 then, please.
54, authorize a contract with Nivu Nan Associates for design and construction administration services for the Ventura Park Play Area improvements and loo installation for a total not to exceed amount of $120,000.
Fritz.
Oh, thanks for being here earlier, Marianne Casson. Let me introduce this. On September 9th, 2015, City Council unanimously accepted the Park Supplement Report to the Citywide Americans with Disabilities Act Transition Plan. The Park Supplement to the Transition Plan includes an assessment of 260 facilities owned, managed, or programmed by Portland Parks and Recreation and identified 20,355 barriers in these facilities. So quite a long list, which I seem to remember is costing over $17 million, but we're going to plug away at it bit by bit. The design and construction work identified in this contract will further the city's equity goals by mitigating access barriers and improving safety at Ventura Park in the East Portland neighborhood of Hazelwood. The improvements will include making the parking area, main path of travel, and play area more accessible for all the visitors. And additionally, the proposed Portland Loo will achieve goals presented in the 2014 Parks Replacement Bond to provide safe, clean, and accessible restrooms in parks that are currently served only by temporary facilities, those being particularly in East Portland. Bond Program Manager Marianne Casson is here to give us another of her delightful presentations.
Good morning, Mayor Hales and members of the council. Just a quick reminder for the viewing audience, I know you know this, but the framing guideline for this contract is that it's part of our replacement bond program, and that consistently over the centuries, the voters have responded to our requests for funding for these kind of capital improvements, this one being particularly focused on replacement of critical needs. There were 7 focus areas in that measure, and this one is concentrated in the playground category, in which we're promising to do 20 places that need playground replacements. Ventura Park, as Commissioner Fritz mentioned, has really outdated play equipment. You can see our wonderful restroom facility there that will be much updated. We will also address accessibility, and last but not least, the bond program, like any other capital program in the city, has a commitment to art. And just like the bond measure 20 years ago, rather than doing a scattershot of teeny little art projects throughout, we've concentrated our efforts, and this is one of the chosen locations for a significant art piece. The artist is part of the team. For those not familiar with the location, this is a really important park. It's along Southeast Stark Street, highly visible, immediately adjacent to an elementary school, hundreds of households that aren't adequately served now, good public transportation access. And again, we are happy to say that our outreach efforts have resulted in good minority women and ESB utilization at 78% for this team. And significantly, the minority part is 64%. The list of items I'm going to be coming forward to with you is getting shorter. This one is on the horizon next month, but it doesn't mean we're not doing anything. We're 7 months into the program, and there are 27 projects underway. Fortunately, this procurement, getting this technical design services in place we're coming to an end of that, and now we're really rolling, and our first construction contract's coming to you next week. Are there any questions?
Questions for Mary Ann?
I have one question, which is I'm noticing the same language in the draw and deliver checks payable. Do you need to make a change to that in yours as well?
Oh, thank you. I had not.
Good spot. I move that we replace draw and deliver checks with pay.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Roll call on the amendment.
Fritz,
This is just on the amendment. We will
Amendment.
take testimony in a minute. Aye.
Fish,
Aye.
Saltzman.
Aye.
Novick,
Aye.
Hales.
Aye. Okay, again, we'll ask that language become standard in
Indeed.
contracts, not just in the Parks Bureau probably, but at least in the Parks Bureau going forward. Okay, any other questions or suggestions? So, okay, so let's then take, anyone want to speak on this item? Come on up.
Good morning.
Morning.
Mayor Charles Hales. It's good to see you. It's always good to see you in the morning. Good morning, Commissioner Dan Saltzman, Commissioner Nick Fish, Commissioner Amanda Fritz, and Commissioner Steve Novick. It's always good to be around these tables. I came here to sit.
Put your name in the record, too.
Yeah. Just for the record, my name is Veronica Bernier, and I'm a graduate from Portland State in public health, but also school and park health. I claim to have worked in that area, and I have actually. We're always looking at the parks. I do have some comments about that park, and in terms of availability and also workability as a solid park. It's beautiful. The vast riparian greenness of that park is lovely. The entrance to it could use a little help. I always wanted to, I love to say, or quote Dr. Seymour Adler, good neighbors build good fences. He said that in 2003 at Portland State. And what I wanted to carry forth is that I would like to see some fences and parameters and borders brought in there along that street that goes into the park to kind of wall off the property there so that it's safe for the children, and also safe off-leash, what do you call it, off-leash dog walking areas. The ingress there is so important to maintain for children and dogs and parents. And the point, the little matrix there that I wanted to bring forward is that I did watch about 50 kids go in there one day because I think it's fun to watch parents and people and dogs. And part of public health work is to look at the parks and the people in the schools. And I did see that in a race, the dogs come in first because they're fast. And so they deserve more off-leash dog walking area, a little bit to the side of where the women and children come in. I just wanted to bring that point forward, and also a few, parameters and boundaries of short fences are okay, 6 foot or whatever, might firm up that border and make it a little bit easier ingress into the lovely park space. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Crystal Elinsky. Thank you, commissioners. I'm going to represent 10,000 Maniacs again. And since I come here today, I've heard a lot of input on the parks. And I'd like to say that I'm concerned with the budget cuts on the parks. I think they're integral to our city. We have the second largest municipal park in the nation. And the first in the nation is where I came from originally in 1990, Phoenix, Arizona, which is completely surrounded by development since the last time I visited. It's very sad. It's called South Mountain. We have Forest Park, and I would really like to see the city concentrate on parks. I've heard a lot of input from people in my neighborhood especially about this neighborhood. This is my new neighborhood, that it's not very accessible. I'm going to have to submit some written statements because I haven't been granted the authority to speak on their behalf, but we need to concentrate on housing for people. I've talked about this since 2006, and some of you know that, but considering houses that are built before 1918 is a bit of a misnomer. There are a lot of housing and parks built around the history of houses built at that time. For example, 72nd Avenue and the bicycle transit. Those houses were built in the 1940s tracts era, and they're very historical. I would like us to start expanding the concept of parks and accessibility to the city, to the historical buildings of our city as well, as far as deconstruction, if we're going to consider expanding the influx of our city. And I would like to really concentrate on that. So as long as the Parks Bureau is under the Commissioner Fritz, to please consider the livability of our communities in hand with the parks. 1918 seems to me to be a very arbitrary number as far as the way we've built our city. And I don't know if you get around as much as I do as a homeless person and as a person who's been moved around a lot because of the housing crisis in our city over the last 10 years. I've been very, very discouraged by the way we protect the historical value of our city. And that goes hand in hand with the park. So if I could place it in the hands of Amanda Fritz and help out with that, I would be privileged.
Great. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Crystal, can I ask you something? Do you have authorization from Natalie Merchant to represent 10,000 Maniacs?
Joking.
He's
Just
joking.
try to ignore him. Don't encourage him, please.
Don't encourage him.
Next time we'll talk. I'm sure. Thank you for giving me the time that you did. I know that all of you offered me 10 minutes since the day I was kidnapped and tortured underneath the federal building. And Mayor Hales, I believe you're still holding true to your ability to meet with me, despite your staff turning me off on many occasions. You said that you would look into the fire hazards of the underground bunker of the federal building.
Well.
That was in 2013, and I understand this is your last year and you're not running again, so hopefully we can address that this year.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's take a vote, please, on this contract.
Fritz?
Thank you to Marianne Casson, the program manager, and Gary Datka, the project manager for this one. Aye.
Fish?
Aye.
Saltzman?
Aye.
Novick?
Aye.
Hales?
Great park, great project. Thank you. Aye. Okay, 156.
Reallocate city's local share of the 2006 Metro Natural Areas Bond.
Commissioner Fritz.
Thank you. In 2006, the voters approved the Metro Natural Areas Bond that allocated over $15 million to Portland Parks and Recreation to be used to purchase natural areas, trails, and neighborhood parks, and to improve trails. With that money, Parks, partnering with the Bureau of Environmental Services, has purchased about 400 acres of new parkland. Parks has about $1 million of the money left to spend on natural areas and trails over the next year. While there are some great opportunities to purchase natural area properties, there likely aren't sufficient opportunities to spend the remaining funds allocated to trail acquisitions. So Parks would like to reallocate the trail money to be used for natural area acquisitions. Selene Nunn, the Assistant Property and Contracts Manager in Portland Parks and Recreation, will make a short presentation.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Zelene Nunn with Portland Parks. As the commissioner said, for the last 9 years or so, Parks, along with BES and Metro, have been busy buying up property with our local share funds. The money has been used to purchase things like Riverview, Conomox Park, Wilkes Headwaters, and numerous properties in Forest Park and the East Buttes. The program is coming to an end, though, and we have about $1 million left and 1 year to spend it. So we've had to start looking at what opportunities could we really get done in the next year. Like she said, the IGA that we have with Metro further allocated the $15 million into 4 categories, which she mentioned. 2 of those, trail improvements and neighborhood parks, we've spent all that money. But we do still have that about $1 million between trail acquisitions and natural area acquisitions. We don't think we'll be able to spend all that on trail, or there's about 400 left for trails, and just looking at the opportunities, some of them are too complex, or we don't have willing sellers, various reasons why we wouldn't be able to complete those in the next year. So we would like to reallocate the money that was intended for trails to natural area acquisitions, because we still do have a number of those that we could accomplish in the next year. I'd also just note that part of why we have so much money left in trails is because we worked closely with Metro, who was often able to use regional share money for trail acquisitions. So we still were able to make significant improvements to the trail system, particularly along like the Columbia Slough Trail and Marine Drive. And the other thing is natural area pieces often do contain a trail component too. So some of this money still may be used for trails, but just in a little bit different allocation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
So I guess I'm not clear to the extent we're talking about, what's been the coordination on this between Parks and BES?
We've often partnered so that BES is putting in Greater Green funds and Parks has put in local share so that we jointly own various properties. So this is more, I'm just saying that they've partnered with us, not that this money is actually used by BES directly. So for instance, Riverview, BES put money in, Parks put in money, but two different funding sources.
So I know I understand how we collaborate. The challenge is typically Parks acquires, or one of us acquires, and then we have to find a way to do the O&M going forward. So if we approve this ordinance, what happens to the $420,000 again?
It would be reallocated towards natural area acquisitions. Rather than buying trails, we'd buy natural area. It just gives us more flexibility.
So this would be pursuant to the IGA that we have between Parks and BES on how we manage.
It would still be subject to that in terms of how we then managed it thereafter. It doesn't make any changes to that.
This is just about the IGA with Metro at the moment.
Okay.
And then those decisions would be separate. Thank you.
Okay, further questions? Thank you very much. Anyone want to speak on this item? If not, it moves to second reading next week. Thank you. Okay, item 157.
Apologize, I have a lunch thing.
Approve and terminate limited tax exemptions for properties under the Homebuyer Opportunity and Multiple Unit Limited Tax Exemption Programs.
Commissioner Salzman.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an annual exercise where we remove home ownership limited tax exemptions for those properties that are no longer owner occupied or their owners exceed income requirements. And then we're also adding in new home ownership limited tax exemptions for new homes that are affordable to buyers. I would urge approval.
Okay. Let's see, anyone want to speak on this item? It is a resolution. Let's take a vote, please.
Fish?
Oh, I guess right. Fritz left, okay.
Yes.
I'm pleased to support this, and I believe concurrent with the creation of the new Portland Housing Bureau, the function of oversight of our limited tax exemption program migrated from PDC over to the Housing Bureau, and we now have regular council hearings on this issue, and the properties we're terminating are properties that are no longer eligible under the terms of the agreements that we had. And I'm very pleased with the work the Housing Bureau has done in terms of oversight of this program, and I'm pleased to vote aye.
Saltzman?
Aye.
Novick?
Good program. Aye.
Hills.
Aye. And 158.
Approve application to extend the property tax exemption under the Multiple Unit Limited Tax Exemption Program for Sitka Apartments located at 1230 Northwest 12th Avenue.
Second reading, roll call.
Fish?
So I'm going to support this because it's an extension of an existing abatement, and because the units are currently occupied, and they are primarily units at 60% of MFI with some at 50%. But I'm going to just state for the record, as these things come forward, in the future, I'll be looking for investments either through direct investment or through abatements in housing that is affordable to disabled veterans and full-time minimum wage workers, which is another way of saying 0 to 30. And Dan, I appreciated the presentation that Director Krieger gave yesterday, because he laid out where we are and where we intend to go through the Home for Everyone framework. And I'll be discussing with both you and the mayor a housing impact statement that can become a regular feature of these matters, so we can test where we are against the goals that we've established as a bureau and a council. This has been a successful development, and I have long believed that we should have the option of extending the abatement beyond 10 years, because the commensurate public benefit is affordable housing in our community. So I'm pleased to support this. Aye.
Saltzman?
Well, as Commissioner Fish alluded to, this is a good investment, worth renewing. It maintains 203 out of 209 units to be affordable, with 131 of those units affordable to those between 0 and 60% of median family income. So it's a very worthwhile abatement, worth continuing. Aye.
Novick?
Aye.
Hales?
Aye. And we are recessed till 2 o'clock.